Welcome ladies and gents, Chris Andre here. Let's talk boxing. What a brilliant fight between Alexander Usyk and Daniel Dubois. Alexander Usyk retains his heavyweight titles after stopping Dubois in round 9. It was a brilliant all-action packed affair, but there was an awful lot of controversy as well. Daniel Dubois dropped Alexander Usyk very heavily with a shot that, well, let's say it was towards the body. Now, whether it landed on the body or landed low, we'll get into that in a moment. We're also going to get technical and we're going to break down why the fight played out in the way it played out. First and foremost, let's look at some footage of the actual low blow. Was this low or not? So we're going to try and analyze this as fairly as we possibly can, as we always do on this channel. Where you pause the shot landing plays a significant role in how you're going to judge this situation. And because we're going to be fair, we're going to show you various points and different angles just to show you that we're as thorough as we can possibly be. So first and foremost, this is where the shot initially makes some sort of contact. The follow through comes a little bit later on, and that matters, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But this is where the initial contact happens. Now, as you can see from Alexander Usyk's shorts, if you look at the lettering on the back of the shorts, which is just about visible, that's on the belt line. Below that lettering, so just say around here, maybe half an inch below, an inch below, that is where the bottom of the belt line is. That's where the belt line ends. Can you just see that there? And obviously from that line, so to speak, to the top is where the entire belt line is. Now, as you can see, Daniel Dubois' thumb and perhaps the index finger's knuckle land on the belt line. You've then got 3 knuckles, the middle finger, the ring finger and the little finger's knuckles, that seem to land below the belt line. Now, even if these shorts are high, which is what many people are saying, where would you say that the belly button is here on Alexander Usyk? It's not going to be lower than there. That would appear very unnatural. In other words, if the belly button is there, then the only knuckle that would land above the belly button would be the thumb. And if that's the case, then you couldn't really say that this was not a low blow. However, where this initial point of impact occurs, if you roll it a split second further back, as the follow through occurs, you see that Alexander Usyk recoils. He curves his body as he seeks to step back. And because Daniel Dubois' shot it's an uppercut, essentially, it's moving upwards, right? The trajectory, if you look at the tip of the elbow, which would be somewhere around here, say, and you follow the forearm, the outer part of the forearm, you can see that there's an upward trajectory. So he's punched through and rising. His punch is rising. And because Usyk then recoils and lifts his legs off the floor, now his belly button might be in this sort of area here. So now the thumb and the index finger, perhaps even the middle finger, do land or follow through to land in a legal area. But there's too much of the hand, too much of the fist from this angle, facing from the right-hand side of Daniel Dubois. This is the angle that the referee would have seen. Not quite as side on as this, the ref, but he was from this trajectory. From here, it does look low. If we then look from the opposing side, well, from there, it appears as though you can see the upper part of the glove, in other words, where the thumb and perhaps index finger would be. That lands on flesh. That's above the belt line. The rest of the knuckles seem to be at least on the belt line. So from this angle, it looks like a legal shot. But because you're seeing it from the opposite direction, and part of Alexander Usyk's body is covering the fist of Daniel Dubois, it's this angle which is the fairest angle, coming from this side. And from there, where the initial point of impact occurs, it seems low. And even with the follow through, it does seem a little bit below the belt line and where the belly button would be. So let's say though, for argument's sake, you disagree and you do feel that it was a legal shot. It was borderline. Usyk had his shorts up. Even, maybe you disagree with me about where the belly button is. If you think that that was a fair knockdown, a lot of people are saying, well, Dubois was robbed. Potentially, but not necessarily. The fact of the matter is Alexander Usyk had 3 minutes and 45 seconds to recover. He's allowed 5 minutes. So he didn't break any rules by doing that. But a lot of people are saying it was a robbery. Had he gone down and stayed down for that long, it's got to be waved off because it was a fair shot. Even if you think it was a fair shot, it's not necessarily going to play out with Usyk getting stopped because he's probably using all of his experience to milk the situation. I'm going to take as much time as I possibly can by creating this controversy. Any other shots that come towards the belt line, the referee's going to have to pull him up on. The home crowd are booing. They're chanting my name as well. You're creating sort of narratives within the fight that are going to work in your way, and you're 36 years old. It's giving you extra time to get a second wind, right? Doesn't necessarily mean he doesn't get up. There's a flip side to that coin though. Remember, we always play defense and prosecution, and we're always fair on this channel. The flip side is, even if Usyk gets up, how much has he recovered from that shot if it is legal? How do you know whether he's raring to go again? He was affected by those body shots the entire night. He was uncomfortable. So if he had gotten up after 8 seconds rather than 3 minutes and 45, would he have been able to cope with the onslaught? Who knows? It's all speculative. It's controversial. Frank Warren's been saying they need to run it back with a rematch. Listen, to be fair, I'm somebody that when a fight's very close or somebody can make adjustments, I'm always for a rematch. I'm not always against it. Of course, an undisputed title fight between Fury and Usyk would be what we all want to see. But if that was not to happen, or if the governing bodies decided for reasons of justice that the fight would have to be reordered, I wouldn't hate it. It's the same reason I don't mind seeing Vasyl Lomachenko against Devin Haney again. When you've got really good, close, competitive fights and guys are capable of making adjustments, I'm happy to see them again. The problem is we've got that little carrot dangling in front of us, and that's what we really want to see, right? We all really want to see undisputed between Fury and Usyk. But how did this fight actually play out? Let's move away from the controversy, but obviously let me know in your comments down below whether you thought it was low or not. I had Alexander Usyk winning the first 3 rounds, and we spoke in the preview that although Dubois has the more thudding, distractive jab, the lead hand, the usage of the lead hand, the education of the lead hand, there's a gap between the two. Usyk is a master, and you saw that in the first 3 rounds. He was able to do all the things we spoke about, the foot feints, the knee feints, the shoulder feints, threatening to jab and not do anything, step inside really powerfully with the jab when your opponent's not reacting. And you could see that Daniel Dubois had a real nightmare on his hands, and he was overreacting. He was biting on feints. He was trying to throw this looping jab where he's falling short. He looked nervous. He looked as though, you know, I'm operating at a level here from an intellectual perspective in the ring that I've not operated at before. And I'm in a bit of a state of panic here. But by the end of round 3, it became apparent that Dubois had to change something. And one of the things that he was struggling with as well was trying to judge which way Usyk was going to go. You often hear a lot of casuals say you should always step on the outside of the lead foot when it's orthodox versus southpaw. And I've been saying here for a long time, that's only if you want to line up a backhand shot, because you create a situation where the shoulder comes in line with the chin and it's the shortest place from A to B. Sometimes if you want to go with the lead hand to the face of the opponent, on occasion you want to come inside that lead foot, because that is the closest distance between your hand and his chin. The problem is when you're doing that, you're moving into an area of danger. So you have to disguise it. You have to use feints. You have to use misdirection. You have to be unpredictable. And Usyk's capable of doing all these things. But there was one thing that Usyk himself was doing, which was a pattern. When Dubois was throwing a right hand, what you would often see is that Usyk was trying to block it by throwing up a hand and then just rotating away from that shot. So it's coming from here and he'd rotate to try and catch it on his forearm, his bicep, his shoulder. And I mentioned at the end of round 3 on Twitter that I want to see Daniel Dubois throw a right hand to the chest and then loop over a left hook, because as he turns, even if he's got both hands up, as he turns to block, he creates an opening through that center line, and through that center line you might be able to whip in a hook that ends up landing. And he started to do that in round 4. And I actually joked on Twitter to say, if anyone's asking, you know, Daniel Dubois has been reading my tweets mid-rounds, right? But I don't know, obviously, if Don Charles had said that to him. I don't know if Dubois figured that out himself, but it was a nice little adjustment. And I still felt that Usyk probably edged that round, but it was very competitive. It was a swing round. The next round is when the controversy came. In terms of what then played out, Usyk clearly slowed down. It affected him. And I wanted to see Dubois be a little bit more aggressive in those moments and really go after the body. He did land some nice body shots for the first 20-25 seconds. But at that point, I'm thinking to myself, I want to see you be a bit more aggressive. By the same token, I'm looking at Usyk and I'm thinking, I want to see you give him something back to make him question whether he can just run in on you. And he did do that, Usyk. He started to look for that lead hand again over the top of the jab, and it made Dubois just a little bit tentative to just go gung-ho. And these are the sorts of things that he's capable of doing, which enable him to dictate tempo. But I still felt he lost that round. And the following round, his feet still looked slow. And something changed at this point. Rather than Usyk being the one who's making Dubois bite on feints, it was the other way around. Because what Dubois started to do is, rather than be overreactive to everything Usyk's throwing his way, he's holding himself a little bit more, being a little bit calmer. Even if he eats a shot, immediately it's going to trigger a counter. And the counter, more often than not, was the right shovel hook or right uppercut towards the solar plexus, towards the body. And Usyk started to bite on that. There were moments where there were feints and you'd see Usyk duck forward and crouch and step out of a crouch. He was concerned. He was uncomfortable. Those body shots were affecting him. The left hook to the ribs as well was also affecting him. He was feeling it. So what Alexander Usyk did was make another adjustment. And this is why he's such a fantastic fighter with such a great ring IQ. The majority of analysts, myself included, felt that if Daniel Dubois was to have a chance, He shouldn't be too standoffish and try to box. He has to get in there up close, let go of his hands, target that body. And it's Usyk who's going to be looking to dictate the tempo. Well, in that moment, Usyk adjusted and he became more aggressive. He started to put more pressure on with the front foot, stay in the pocket more, and let go of consecutive backhands. In other words, on paper, it appears as though he's now starting to fight Daniel Dubois' fight. But the reason he's doing that is because he's questioning, does Daniel Dubois have the gas tank? I can't really miss with a backhand. Whenever I'm throwing it, I'm landing it, and I'm landing it flush. And in addition to that, I'm going to be able to hopefully get him out of there and end the amount of time I'm in the ring for. The longer I'm in the ring for, there's more risk of some sort of big shot landing on me and taking me out. The other thing I noticed is that Alexander Usyk, one of his best punches usually, a great weapon for him that goes under the radar, is the backhand to the body, to the solar plexus. He really drills through with it, and especially against these big muscular guys, when it's landing, it really takes it out of them physically. They're trying to breathe, they're trying to get the oxygen their big muscles need, and he's ripping them there. With Dubois, he wasn't doing it as much tonight, and I felt that he should have done it a bit more, but I can understand the logic. I believe the reason he wasn't doing that is because he was concerned with the uppercut and wide hook and shovel hook coming back from Daniel Dubois, that low trajectory of punch. I think in his mind, he was thinking, for me to throw that backhand to the body, I've got to crouch, I've got to come low. And if I come low and I'm launching into that shot and really shifting my weight through it, I can end up moving onto a right uppercut. And that could be all she wrote. That takes us into the last couple of rounds. Dubois actually started really well in round 8, and he was more active, and Usyk seemed to be waning and slowing, and you're wondering, has he been feeling that pace? How's he going at this age right now? But he then lands a right hook right upside the top of the head near the temple. Dubois sort of sags. He feels that shot. It's a shot that's caused him problems in the past against Kevin Lorena high up on the head. He then gets caught with an uppercut. He goes down. He survives the round. Then in the round after that, Usyk is very clinical and he ends it with a really nice power jab. He really steps into it. There's full rotation behind it without there being much load on it. Very efficient delivery when it comes to power, and Daniel Dubois was not able to survive that. He did get up around 9.5, 10. The referee waved it away. There weren't really any protests. It seemed like he was spent. It seemed like he was done. Just a really good, efficient finish from Alexander Usyk. So how do we summarize what we saw and what did we learn tonight? Well, Alexander Usyk, from the perspective of these cards, would have won this pretty comfortably had it gone to the scorecards, because I had him winning 6 of the 9 rounds, if you're going to include the last one. And in addition to that, he dropped Dubois on a couple of occasions, so nowhere near close on the scorecards. But from a physical perspective, it was taxing. The body shots were clearly having an effect, and I know that because he was biting on feints and overly reacting to the threat of the body shots. In addition to that, I also thought that his feet had slowed down somewhat after the 5th round. Now, is that just because of the low blow and that had a lingering effect? Or is it because of the bodywork of Daniel Dubois? Or alternatively, is it something more concerning? Is it a fact that he's a 36-year-old heavyweight who relies very much on movement, balance, agility, certain athletic attributes that will wane? And it's natural as a 36-year-old heavyweight that they are going to wane. I'm not ready to sort of pin my money onto that being the reason. I think it's more to do with the fact that Dubois did some really good work to the body, consistent work. And the fact of the matter is, Usyk has never liked it to the body. He complained when he got hit to the body by Anthony Joshua. He complained when he got hit to the body by Briedis, by Beterbiev in the amateurs. It's always been somewhat of a chink in the armour, but he's such a good fighter, he still finds a way through. People are talking about it now as though, wow, look at what we've discovered. Usyk's ready for the taking. This has always been there. No fighter's perfect, and he always finds a way to get around it and to win the fight. So I'm not ready to write him off at all. I think he's still a supreme heavyweight, and we're desperate to see Undisputed, to see who the king of the division is. With regards to Daniel Dubois, he's laid to rest a lot of demons tonight, in my opinion. He really proved himself, because although it wasn't close on the cards, the fight itself, he did a really good job during it. And even the Joe Joyce fight, he took the knee. But prior to that, if you're talking about it being on the cards, it was a nip and tuck fight. It was a good competitive fight. And Joe Joyce went on to establish himself as a top 5 heavyweight at one point based on that CV. He's fallen short to Jile Zhang, but he's got an opportunity to rectify that. If he's not top 5, he's certainly top 10. So falling short to Joyce and falling short to Usyk when you're a young heavyweight isn't the end of the world. He's going to continue to work hard, continue to improve. People talk about Jared Anderson as the future of the heavyweight division, or Jalalov. Myself say they're in the conversation too. Italma is getting a lot of traction now. I've spoken of Richard Torres. A lot of people feel he's too small. I think he is going to go on to become a world-class heavyweight. But in addition to that, I've always said that Dubois is right in that conversation too. And right now, I would pick Dubois over someone like Jared Anderson, for instance, and I would get mugged off for saying that. I just think Jared is a little bit too easy to hit. And Dubois is punishing with his power, and he'd be able to take out Jared Anderson. There are certain stylistic issues there. That might not always be the case. Jared Anderson's ceiling is massive. But the point is, Dubois is in that conversation, and I think he's got a big future ahead of him. Let me know what you think, ladies and gents. Don't forget to hit a stiff jab on the like button, a right cross on the subscribe button, and an uppercut on the notifications button. Thanks for watching. Chat to you soon. Take care. God bless.